Hey, what's up? It's Phoenix, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share, as it helps me a lot and keeps you updated on future content and the content that I'm uploading on a regular basis, which features philosophical discussions as well as my writing and music and many other things to come and that have been. I have over 300 videos at this point, and I encourage you to check them out. You might be wondering what I want to talk about today, and that is definitely a valid question. I would describe it as me wanting to think through the implications of the notion of mastery or self-mastery, mastery over a field or over a specific possibility, and I think that that is very important to consider. I started thinking about this notion many years ago when I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my writing, and I wanted my writing to be, basically wanted to master writing, and I wanted to be good at it, but not even just good at it. I wanted to say something that had never been said before. I wanted to master the topic and not only have personal self-discipline to write and to do these things, express my creativity and my intellectual capacity and interests, but also getting better at writing and leaving a lasting impression due to the intensity of what I had said. And some of these thoughts have evolved and changed throughout time, but I think definitely thinking about mastery or mastering a specific art or field. So for me, that would include music as well as writing. Those are the things that I want to be able to master and to say something novel with and to say something new. Now, Robert Greene talks about some of this in his book on mastery, and I find that book to be very intelligible, and it has a lot of ideas, and it definitely inspired me upon reading it. He basically goes through many different histories of many different pioneers, basically, not just artists and writers and even scientists, but also people who did different things in different fields, such as boxing, actually, as an example. And so, yeah, basically people that were really pushing their boundaries. I think that this is really important because to be aware of, because on the one hand, we don't want to see mastery as a way of being better than anyone else, but we definitely want to see it as being better than we were the day before, in my opinion. Mastery doesn't impose that you are better than any other person at any other thing, but it does mean that you have a certain amount of self-discipline and that you're definitely trying really hard to convey the deeper truths that you know that you can and that you can express. And I think that that's very powerful. It definitely takes a lot of self-discipline based off the stories I had read in this book about mastery by Robert Greene. I realized that there was a lot of sacrifice at play, and there were a lot of hard things that these people had to go through to be able to express that deeper impulse. Now, of course, for me, I'm a little bit biased, and so I see it in terms of being an artist, but you could definitely extend this kind of thinking to a variety of different things, I would say. And it doesn't have to just be art. It could be anything that you're interested in. And I think it's important because often we don't want to push ourselves and challenge ourselves, but really through failure and through determination, we are able to really master the things that we are trying to get good at and that we are trying to convey a deeper truth with. And I think that's important. So for me personally, I see myself as someone who wants to explore, someone who wants to open up my perspective and do difficult things and confront my limitations, while also working really hard at my art and working hard at the actual craft of the things that I do. And I think that that's really important. And for me, I am always blown away by the varying information and ideas and art that I have been able to see in my life, to be able to read and take part of. And I think that that's really cool, ranging from Jackson Pollock to Leonardo da Vinci to Goethe to Albert Einstein. All of these things are definitely very open-ended, and I think that is powerful. Now, in the book about mastery, of course, there was a lot of emphasis on self-discipline, and definitely opening up yourself to failure, and definitely opening yourself up to trying different things, even if that wasn't going to lead to what you would think that it would. But I would say that I also was able to figure out through this that there is something to be said about an intuitive grasp of something versus just the mere logic that we might employ. So I think, in my opinion, one of the problems with scientism, the philosophical term that science is the thing that we can extrapolate all values and truths from, as well as all knowledge and facts, scientism prevents people from thinking in a different way, from looking at things from a different perspective. And I'm not saying that scientists do this, because I think scientists attempt to open up their boundaries and to do difficult experiments and to come to difficult conclusions, to have different experiences. But in my opinion, at least when it comes to the notion of scientism, there is a limitation to what people that have this belief can understand about the world. This doesn't mean that an artist, as an example, would understand more than someone who pursues scientism, so to speak, but it does mean that I think people think that they're logical over any other mode of inquiry. I have in fact done this at some points in my life where I thought that a logical grasp of something was the only true grasp of something. I thought that reason and rationality were the only ways that we can understand the world, and I literally in my older days tried to apply logic to actual human interactions, human existence. I tried to assume that our psychology could be strictly logical. And I had reasons for doing that, but through time and perhaps through reading this book, I've realized that logic can't be the only thing. We must also have an intuitive grasp of things, which comes from deliberate practice, from self-discipline, from an open-minded perspective, and the like. Now, all of this is very exciting for me because it gets me to think about the differing things that I can do and the different kinds of things that I can experiment with. So there are many things that I engage with besides just literature and music. I have worked hard on trying to learn Spanish, for instance. I have branched out to other instruments, such as the piano, even though I find that instrument to be very difficult, but I do it anyway because I like it. And even if it's not as intuitive as, say, the guitar, I have tried to do that. I have tried to metal scream, and that has influenced my singing as well, because I haven't succeeded at that. It's been very difficult, but that's a whole other story. I also write in so many different fields. I write nonfiction, of course, fiction and poetry, but I also write fiction. But even in terms of my poetry, I'm constantly changing the form in which I use to convey ideas. Right now, I'm actually trying to learn things by way of blank verse, writing poetry in blank verse, as you get from like John Milton and William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and other writers. And I find that very valuable, even though it isn't easy for me, and even though in many ways I'm failing. And I think that again, that willingness to fail is so important to the process. Now, one example that I also liked in the book on mastery by Robert Greene was when he talked about Zora Neale Hurston, who was an African-American writer who's influenced me in a variety of ways when thinking of like her fiction and her nonfiction and like her stories, her fiction and her stories that I have read, the kind of like myths that she has. And I was very moved by the idea that she really just wanted different perspectives. She didn't want to just stick with her own perspective. I think that's a really powerful way of opening up the possibilities of what you can do. And I don't take that for granted. So in closing, I would like to say that this idea of mastery and self-discipline, self-mastery means a lot to me. And it's because I like trying new things. I like pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I like forcing myself to try things that are difficult or things that I may fail at. So when I think about mastery, I realize that in my opinion, mastery is very difficult to achieve. But it doesn't have to be this kind of elitist thing, because I think that practice and technique and discipline are a continual part of it. We definitely learned this with the boxer. I believe his name was Freddie Roach, who was emphasized in this book, who had a very good knack basically for lateral thinking, for looking at his position in life and being able to change course, being able to adapt. And I think that that's powerful. And even though he didn't become the great boxer, so to speak, he definitely influenced the sport by way of his teaching, by way of his lessons for other people in the world that he was training, and the like. So for me personally, mastery and the notion of mastering something is very important to me, because I really want to offer something new. I want to offer something good. And again, the elitism isn't part of it. I'm not worried about that, because I think that everything when it comes to this level, takes a degree of subjectivity. So not everybody's going to appreciate what you're doing, and that's just the reality. But as Robert Greene discusses, we need to have a degree of humility when it comes to these things, and mastery is more of a personal goal. So as they say, as long as you're trying to be better than you were yesterday, then you're doing the right things. And as long as you're practicing things and venturing out and trying new things, that's all you can really do. So yeah, I enjoyed making this talk. I hope that you will check out my other videos, and I encourage you to look me up on Amazon. My author page is at amazon.com/author/Phoenix_rises. And I also encourage you to check out my Twitter as well, where I post some things. You can find my handle, Phoenix at the Street Kid. So yeah, this is Phoenix, and keep a lookout for future content. Thank you for watching.